It's shaped like a big M. It's a big cave that looks just like a gigantic M. This one just made my body vibrate. The closer I got to it, the crazier my body felt.
The online community was thrilled. The search for the M Cave was on. But whether he found the M Cave or not, we'll never know, because Kenny Veach was never seen again.
Hikers, cavers, explorers, and even random people go missing every year.
Yo, we're not going in the city, are we? No, we're not.
Chasing mystery.
Jim's disappearance was a mystery and remains a mystery.
So in this video, let's look at these strange disappearances that left people in shock.
Mr. Holt went for a swim shortly after noon with a friend, Mr. Alan Stewart. Mr. Stewart told police he saw the Prime Minister dive, but he failed to resurface.
I would say Jim was gracious, Jim was urbane, Jim was passionate, Jim was charming, Jim was cosmopolitan.
From that call still creeps people out. Strange noises, odd sounds. Nobody could really make sense of it. His phone also kept calling a number in Texas that went out of service shortly after. A month later, someone sent an anonymous letter clues to where he was, and eventually they found his remains near a lake. But the weirdest part? No one really knows what happened, and there's still no clear answer. Vanishing. In 2013, 26-year Brandon Lawson left home after a late-night argument with his girlfriend. Things had already been tough. He'd been working long hours, and there was a newborn at home. He drove off around midnight, and soon after, his brother Kyle saying his truck ran out of gas near a remote stretch of road.
Jim's disappearance was a mystery and remains a mystery.
Etekica's energy.
Where you can no longer say the word nigga. I'm not talking N-I-G-G-E-R, the A version, the one we took. We transformed from a tool of hatred into a tool of love.
Etekica was one of those creators you couldn't ignore. Super loud, super funny, and just full of energy. He was all about Nintendo games, especially Super Smash Bros., and his reactions were so wild, they kinda became a meme of their own. If you watched him even once, you'd get why so many people loved him. He had this vibe that just pulled you in. But over time, something seemed off. His posts started getting confusing, and his fans didn't really know what to make of it. Some thought he was joking like he usually did. Others felt like he was trying to say something more serious. Eventually, things got quiet, and then came the news.
A missing YouTube star has been found dead. Desmond Amofa, known as Etekica to thousands of followers on social media, was pulled from the East River Tuesday morning, according to the NYPD.
It left people with more questions than answers. Whatever really happened, it's clear he made a big mark online.
But one thing I tell y'all is that we niggas, at least at the end of the day, that's the fiber that holds us together. You know what I'm saying? So think about this.
Trail mystery.
We just typically don't see people go to that lengths. Most people are not comfortable being completely off the grid like that.
He called himself mostly harmless, a hiker who quietly made his way down the Appalachian Trail. No phone, no ID, just a smile and a backpack. He joked with fellow hikers, made friends on the path, and carried a calm energy that stuck with people. Then one day, deep in Florida's Big Cypress National Preserve, hikers found a yellow tent with someone inside, and the trail community went silent. No one knew his real name. No one had reported him missing. But thanks to a group of everyday people online who refused to forget him, his face kept popping up until someone recognized him. 2.5 years later, they finally found out who he was. But what happened to him out there in that tent? That part still isn't totally clear, and maybe it never will be.
It's not really a difference, it's a difference in when you were talking to him. He was very easy to talk to, he was very friendly, but he would also turn off and be in a bad mood. And the trail people never saw that, because if he decided he wasn't going to talk to anyone, no one would know, no one would remember him, I'm sure.
Paul Zimmer mystery. So Paul Zimmer was once everywhere. He blew up on Musical.ly by lip-syncing, flexing his looks, and collecting gifts from fans during live streams. But then things got messy. People said he was promising stuff like shoutouts and duets in return for gifts, but never actually followed through. After all that, he just disappeared, like completely vanished from the internet. Then, out of nowhere, he came back, but under a new name, Troy Becker. He said Troy was a 16-year-old actor who looked just like him.
Troy? So I've been working with Brad for the past year now, and originally when I found him on YouTube, I saw that he had a really cool, interesting approach to acting, which was like a really fun approach and really different than anything I had seen before.
Later, he claimed Paul was just a character he had made up for social media, but turns out he had legally changed his name to Troy Becker years earlier. So yeah, it was technically true, but also super misleading. And just when people started asking more questions, the story suddenly stopped. No clear answers, just silence. Well, do comment below if you know anything about this guy. Gone too soon. Amber Takaro was a 20-year-old from Alberta, just visiting the city for a quick trip. One day in 2010, she got into a car with a man she didn't know well, hoping to get a ride into town. During that ride, Amber made a phone call, and part of it got recorded.
Yo, where are we going? No, this is Are you f***ing kidding me? You better not take me anywhere I don't want to go. I want to go into the city. Jeez. Yo, we're not going in the city, are we? We're going. No, we're not. Yes. Then where the f*** these roads going to? 50th Street. 50th Street. Are you sure? Absolutely.
You can actually hear the man's voice calmly leading her somewhere, and her sounding unsure. That call is all we really have. A couple of years later, Amber's remains were found, but the mystery around what happened hasn't been solved. Even with the phone call and other clues, no one's been held responsible. People still go back and listen to that call, hoping it might one day point to the truth. Vanished at sea.
Mr. Holt went for a swim shortly after noon with a friend, Mr. Alan Stewart. They swam out into heavy surf on the ocean side of the Mornington Peninsula. Mr. Stewart told police he saw the Prime Minister dive, but he failed to resurface.
In 1967, Australia's Prime Minister Harold Holt went for a swim at Cheviot Beach, and just like that, he was never seen again. No security, no staff, just a casual beach day that turned into one of the strangest mysteries in the country's history. People searched everywhere, land, sea, even air, but there was no sign of him.
Huge surf, and where the gutter was, where he'd gone in, went straight out to the rocks where the huge surf was breaking.
Some say the waves were too strong that day, others think he just wanted to disappear. Then there are wild ideas like submarines or secret missions, but none of them have ever been proven. To this day, there's no clear answer to what really happened to Harold Holt. One minute he was one of the most important people in Australia, and the next, gone without a trace. Mysterious farewell.
It was titled Surprise, Final Video. Then she sings a love song to that person.
Hi, love. It's me. So I finally got done. So I just wanted to show you what I made.
This is a mysterious case from 2013 that still gives people chills online. Talika Patrick, a young doctor in training, posted a few emotional videos on a small YouTube channel. They were directed at someone she called her love, though no one in her life seemed to know who that was. A few weeks later, Talika vanished. She had been acting a little off at work, and after a weird night involving a hotel, a shuttle ride, and a sudden highway trip far from home, her car was found, but she wasn't. People started digging into her online life and found some unusual tweets and messages, including ones directed at a famous singer. It was all really personal and kind of concerning. Months later, something was found near where her car had been, but the details, they just didn't add up. A lot of people still feel like something's missing from the story. Something big. What do you know about this mysterious disappearance? Tell me in the comments below.
Her car was found in northern Indiana, just off of I-94. The family says police have seized her computers, they're looking at phone records, and there is a $15,000 reward for any information about her whereabouts.
Vanishing Call. Back in 2015, a guy named Henry McCabe went missing in Minnesota, and the whole thing just doesn't sit right. Henry was a 32-year-old auditor, and that night, he'd been out with friends, first at a barbecue, then a nightclub. After partying, one friend said Henry wanted to be dropped at a gas station instead of heading home, which was already a bit odd. Later that night, Henry called his wife, and the voicemail from that call still creeps people out. Strange noises, odd sounds. Nobody could really make sense of it. His phone also kept calling a number in Texas that went out of service shortly after. A month later, someone sent an anonymous letter giving clues to where he was, and eventually they found his remains near a lake. But the weirdest part? No one really knows what happened, and there's still no clear answer. Vanishing Highway. In 2013, 26-year-old Brandon Lawson left home after a late-night argument with his girlfriend. Things had already been tough. He'd been working long hours, and there was a newborn at home. He drove off around midnight and soon after called his brother Kyle, saying his truck ran out of gas near a remote stretch of road. That's where it all got strange. Brandon called 911, sounding panicked.
911 emergency. Yes, I'm in the middle of the field. We're just pushing guys over. Right here going towards Javelin on both sides. My truck ran out of gas. There's one car here. You got to take it to the woods. Please hurry.
Saying something weird was going on around him. He also kept calling Kyle, saying he could see him and an officer nearby, but no one could see Brandon. Then his phone stopped working. A big search was launched, but nothing turned up until years later, when some of his things were found near that same area. Some remains were also discovered, but there's still no solid answer about what really happened that night, and maybe we'll never fully know. Lost talent. Di, a rapper from Forest, Ontario, was really starting to get noticed in the late 2000s. By 2010, Billboard even named him one of Canada's top rising artists. He had a unique sound, a growing fan base, and a deep message behind his name. Di stood for Die Young, but he explained it wasn't meant in a dark way.
DY actually stands for die young. A lot of people take it as negative. It's a metaphor for life being too short. Even if you die at 100, it's too young, so live every day like it's your last.
To him, it was about how life always feels too short, no matter how long you live. In August 2010, Di told his family he was planning a trip to Mexico. After that, no one heard from him again. His last post was a birthday shout-out to a radio host in September. Since then, just silence. Susan Powell.
To that terribly sad story out of Washington State. Josh Powell, who lost custody of his two boys after being suspected of killing his missing wife Susan back in 2009.
The case of Joshua Powell is one of the most unsettling family mysteries in recent memory. After his wife Susan went missing in 2009, suspicion quickly turned toward Josh due to his unusual behavior. He claimed to have taken their two young sons camping in freezing temperatures the night Susan vanished.
Covering all my bases, making sure that if something happens to me or my family or all of us, that our assets are documented.
An excuse that didn't sit right with police. Inside their home, investigators found odd clues. Fans aimed at a wet spot on the couch, Susan's phone in Josh's car, and a troubling note she'd written about her fears. Despite ongoing investigations, Susan was never found. The case only grew more disturbing in the years that followed, leaving many unanswered questions behind. Frozen mystery. This story is just strange from start to finish. Back in 1959, a group of experienced hikers went on a winter trip through Russia's Ural Mountains. One of them turned back early due to health issues, but the rest kept going and never came back. When rescuers finally found their tent weeks later, it was cut open from the inside, and their stuff was still in place, like they left in a rush. Some of them were found with barely any clothes on, as if they ran out in panic. Others were found much later, hidden under the snow with strange injuries that no one could really explain. The area was quiet, with no signs of anyone else around. People have come up with all sorts of theories, everything from natural causes to secret experiments. But to this day, no one really knows what happened up there. Him around afterward. Later, he posted a video saying it was all fake. But honestly, he didn't look too relaxed in that one. Then he came back again and said the connection was forced and that he was still scared. In his upload, he returned to the mountain and showed what looked like a new military base up there. After that, nothing. His account went. And a couple of months later, local news posted his obituary. That's where the trail ends. The final. Chelino Sanchez was more than just a singer, was a voice for people who lived rough lives. He became for singing about real struggles, often about cartels in his songs. One night in 1992, while performing on stage in Culiacan, someone handed him a note. You can actually see him reading it in the middle. Not strange. Brand 911 sounding panicked, saying something weird was going on around him. He also kept calling Kyle, saying he could see him and an officer. No one could see Brandon. Then his phone stopped working. A big was launched, but nothing turned up until years later, when some of his were found near that same area. Some remains were discovered, but there's still no solid answer about what really happened. And maybe we'll never fully know. Frozen mystery. This story is just strange from start to finish. Back in '59, a group of experienced hikers went on a winter trip through the Ural Mountains. One of them turned back early due to issues, but the rest kept going and never came back. When rescuers finally found their tent weeks later, it was lost for good. So back in 1587, a group of 115 English settlers arrived on Roanoke Island, off today's North Carolina. They wanted to build a new home, but things got tough real fast. Low supplies, rough weather, and not enough time to grow food meant someone had to head back to England. That person was Governor John White, who also was a new grandpa. Sadly, war delays kept him away for 3 years. When he finally came back in 1590, the entire colony was just gone. Houses taken apart, people missing. The only clue? The word Croatoan carved into a post. No mess, no clear signs of anything bad happening, just silence. Even today, people are still trying to figure out what actually happened. But for now, Roanoke stays a mystery. Trapped forever. Thanksgiving 2009 was meant to be a joyful time for John Edward Jones, a 26-year-old medical student and father. But things took a turn inside Utah's Nutty Putty Cave. While exploring with his brother, John mistook a narrow passage for the well-known birth canal and became trapped in an uncharted fissure, only 10 inches wide and 18 inches high. Stuck upside down, he remained there for 27 hours as rescue teams tried everything. Pulleys, anchors, ropes, but the cave's pressure and gravity worked against them. John never made it out. Today, Nutty Putty Cave remains sealed, his body still inside, a haunting reminder of nature's unforgiving side. Cave dive mystery. Ben McDaniel was a skilled diver who often visited Vortex Spring in Florida. On August 18, 2010, he went in for a solo dive and never came back. His truck was still parked at the site, with his wallet, phone, and even cash inside. Dive shop staff had seen him enter the cave, and 2 of them even helped unlock the gate to the deeper sections. But when Ben didn't resurface, a massive search started. Divers went deep, but no trace of him or his gear was ever found, just a couple of tanks with normal air. Some thought he got lost inside, others believed he may have planned his own escape. Years later, nobody really knows what happened in those dark underwater tunnels, and Ben's story still puzzles everyone. The giant video. Andrew Dawson was a regular guy on TikTok who ended up posting something wild on his account. He filmed what looked like a giant standing on top of a mountain in Canada. That video blew up, but things got weird fast. Andrew later claimed that some serious government people from both the US and Canada showed up and asked him to leave the area. He said they even started following him around afterward. A few days later, he posted a video saying it was all fake, but honestly, he didn't look too relaxed in that one. Then he came back again and said the confession was forced and that he was still scared. In his final upload, he returned to the mountain and showed what looked like a new military base base up there. After that, nothing. His account went silent, and a couple of months later, local news posted his obituary. That's where the trail ends. Vanished politician. So, this guy named Ilas Ali used to be a member of parliament and was pretty vocal against the government. And one day, he just vanished. Last seen walking down a street on a Tuesday, and nothing after that. His wife said she hasn't heard a single thing since he was part of the opposition. People think he might have been taken by someone with power. Human rights groups have raised concerns too, saying this kind of thing happens more often than you'd think. The country got tense fast, roads were empty, protests popped up, and even his party headquarters was surrounded. At one point, his wife got a tip about his location, and the Rapid Action Battalion went looking, but he wasn't there. And just like that, he became a symbol for something much bigger. Gone in Himalayas. Bill Tilman wasn't just your average explorer. This guy climbed Everest, sailed around the world, and still found time to write books about it all. Born in 1898, he started off in the Army during World War I, but later traded uniforms for climbing gear and a sailboat. Bill had a fearless spirit and was always drawn to remote places that most people wouldn't even dream of visiting. In 1950, he and his team set off to explore a tricky part of the Himalayas called the Nanda Devi Massif, but somewhere along the way, they vanished. No one really knows what happened. Despite rescue missions and searches, there's still no trace of him. Tilman's story stays alive, though, through his books and through all the adventurers he inspired. The final note. Chelino Sanchez was more than just a singer. He was a voice for people who lived rough lives. He became famous for singing about real struggles, often calling out cartels in his songs. One night in 1992, while performing on stage in Culiacan, someone handed him a note. You can actually see him reading it in the middle of the show. No one knows exactly what it said, but it's believed to be a warning, telling him this would be the last song he'd ever sing. Chelino looked up, folded the note, and kept singing anyway. That was just who he was. The next day, he was found far from the spotlight, and the story took a dark turn. What really happened after that, and what was written on that note, still remains a mystery to this day. The fall of MJStation. At one point, MJStation's YouTube channel was pulling in a mind-blowing 50 million views per month. But on March 12th, 2021, it all came crashing down. Every single one of his YouTube accounts was permanently banned. Just like that, Jay tweeted a simple, "Okay guys, been fun, peace out," and vanished. But here's the thing. Walking away quietly? That's just not Jay. So of course fans eventually found a secret Twitter where he started teasing a comeback, with help from Dr. Phil apparently. He also claimed he'd been making $70,000 deals off-platform. But is this comeback legit, or just another ploy to sneak back into YouTube's good books? Honestly, Jay's whole career can be summed up in one word: controversy. And as we dig deeper, it becomes pretty clear why things got so messy so fast. Uncle Chris missing. You guys probably know him as Uncle Chris from the Yeet Baby TikToks, the funny uncle with 5.7 million followers. But earlier this year, things took a surprising turn. Chris disappeared for over a week, and no one knew where he was. Turns out he was going through something really tough, a manic episode caused by bipolar eye disorder, which he was recently diagnosed with.
I asked them to bring me to a hospital to have me evaluated, or I just want to go to a hospital. I didn't feel safe out in the wild. So they bring me there, they do evaluation, and they're like, and then I decided I wanted to leave. I was like, oh no, I'm good, I feel good now, I had a good meal, a little rest. They're like, well, you can't go. And I got locked up to a hospital bed for approximately 6 hours and had to pee in a bucket for those 6 hours, and then I was taken to the mental facility.
He later checked into a mental health facility and stayed there for 17 days. Chris says it all started after some tough personal stuff.
Firstly, I was already going through a very tough time with the 2 miscarriages and the separation, so that was a lot to deal with already.
A breakup and some major losses in his life. During his episode, he gave away a ton of money, trashed his stuff, and even tried to get help by throwing things out of his car. He's now speaking out, sharing his journey, helping others. And then, just like that, things suddenly changed again. Unusual tweets. including ones directed at a famous singer. It was all really personal and kind concerning. Months later, something was near where her car had been. But the detail, they just didn't add up. A lot of people still feel like something's missing from the story. Something big. What do you know about this mysterious disappearance? Tell me in the comments below. The giant video. His TikTok account. For the whole story. Andrew Dawson was a guy on TikTok who ended up posting something wild on his account. He filmed what looked like a giant standing on top of a mountain in Canada. That video blew up, but things got weird fast. Andrew later claimed that some serious government people from both the US and Canada showed up and asked him to leave the area. He said no one knows exactly what it said. Believed to be a warning, telling him this would be the last song he'd ever sing. Chelino looked up, folded the note, and kept singing anyway. It was just who he was. The next day, he was found far from the spotlight, and the story took a turn. What really happened after that, and what was written in the note, still remains a mystery to this day. Trail mystery. He called himself Mostly Harmless, who quietly made his way down the Appalachian Trail. No phone, no ID, just a smile and a backpack. Joked with fellow hikers, made friends on the path, and carried a energy that stuck with people. Then one deep in Florida's Big Cypress National, Phoebe's vanishing.
We have new developments tonight in the search for a missing teenager in the Wide Bay.
17-year-old Phoebe Bishop was all set to visit her boyfriend. She was supposed to catch a flight from Bundaberg on May 15th, but never made it inside the airport. That was the last anyone saw of her. She lived in Gingin with two housemates who told police they dropped her off, but now things are getting more confusing. Her housemate's car was spotted with different number plates, and police think some clues might have been moved before they got there. For days now, search teams have been going through thick bushland in Goodnight Scrub National Park, hoping for answers. It's shaken the small community, and everyone just wants her to come home safe. As of now, Phoebe's story remains full of unanswered questions.
There's no suggestion at all in relation to that this weapon was involved in this investigation. However, we're not ruling anything out. We're just keeping all possibilities open.
Missing Paralympians. During the 2024 Paralympics in Paris, two athletes from the Congo, Muriel Ganga and Emmanuel Mambako, vanished without a trace. Muriel was even the flag bearer and gave a joyful dance during the opening. Emmanuel ran in the blind sprinting event and came in fourth, but after September 5th, nobody saw them again. What's more, Emmanuel's running guide Sharon also disappeared. Their luggage was gone too, but strangely, their passports were left behind with the Congolese team. Another athlete, Claudine from Rwanda, also went missing just before the games started. Some people believe they may have stayed behind in France, possibly hoping to start a new chapter, but no one really knows for sure. The case is still open, and for now, it's one big mystery. Lost artist. Wapko Jensma was a South African artist, poet, and writer who had a pretty unique style. He wrote in both English and Afrikaans, and his poems often felt like music. He even said words were his jazz instrument. But even with all the praise, Wapko's life wasn't easy. He faced mental health struggles later on and was eventually diagnosed with schizophrenia. For a while, he lived at a shelter where they helped him with doctor visits and care. Then one day in 1993, he was taken to an appointment, but he never came back. People searched everywhere, hospitals, shelters, records, but he was just gone. Even after all these years, no one knows where he went or what happened to him. And just like that, he vanished. Vanished genius. Barbara Newhall Follett was a writing prodigy. By the time she was 12, her books were being praised by big names in literature. But life wasn't always kind to her. After her father left and the Great Depression hit, things got tough. She still kept writing though, and later married a man named Nickerson Rogers, but something seemed off in the relationship. Then, one evening in 1939, after a small argument, Barbara walked out of her home with just $30 and never came back. Her husband didn't report her missing for 2 weeks. Years went by, but no one found a single clue. Some think she simply chose to disappear and live a new life somewhere else. No one really knows, and maybe we never will. Gone at sea. Scott Smith, the bassist of the rock band Loverboy, just loved music and the ocean. On November 30th, 2000, he set sail with his fiancée and a friend near San Francisco, planning a peaceful trip down the coast. The weather was calm at first, but things suddenly changed. A huge wave rocked the boat, and in all the chaos, Scott wasn't seen again. The Coast Guard and his friends searched for hours, even days, but there was no sign of him. Scott had helped write some of Loverboy's biggest hits, and fans were heartbroken. Years later, the band paid tribute to him with a song called Stranded. No one really knows what happened that day. Scott just disappeared into the sea, and the mystery still lingers. Gone without warning. Lars Mittank was on a fun trip with friends in Bulgaria when things took a strange turn. After a small injury, a doctor told him not to fly right away, so Lars stayed behind alone. But soon he started acting odd, texting his mom saying he felt unsafe and that someone was following him. He booked a cheap hotel near the airport, but his behavior got even more unusual. The next day, he visited the airport doctor, then suddenly ran off, leaving his bags behind. CCTV shows him running out of the airport and into the nearby woods. That was the last time anyone saw him. No one knows what really happened. Vanished runner. Amy Roe Bechtel went missing in 1997 after going for a jog in the Wyoming mountains. She was training for a big race and had stopped by a few local shops before heading out to the trail. Her car was later found parked near the forest, but she was nowhere to be seen. Search teams combed the area for days, through forests, lakes, and even old mines, but found nothing helpful. A watch was discovered years later that looked like hers, but it didn't lead anywhere. Even now, over 2 decades later, nobody really knows what happened to Amy. Strange disappearance. Most of you probably know Glenn Miller's iconic swing music, but his 1944 disappearance remains one of Butu's biggest aviation mysteries. He boarded a small Norseman plane in England, bound for Paris to entertain Allied troops, and vanished. No wreckage, no confirmed crash, nothing. But that might be changing. In the 1980s, a fisherman pulled up a W-2 plane from the English Channel and later realized it matched the type Miller disappeared in.
In 1987, trawling in the English Channel, he pulled up an airplane wreck that he later realized looked like the kind of airplane that Glenn Miller disappeared in.
Some believe it was friendly fire, RAF bombers dumping explosives just as his plane passed below. Others think it was engine trouble or freezing weather. And yes, conspiracy theories are still floating around. Hackers found a yellow tent. Someone inside, and the trail community went silent. No one's real name. No one had reported him missing. But thanks to a group of everyday people online, refused to forget him. His face kept popping up until someone recognized him. 2.5 years later, they finally found out who he was. But what happened to him out there in that part still isn't totally clear, and maybe it never will be. Vanishing Call. Back in 2015, a guy named Henry McCabe went missing in Minnesota, and the thing just doesn't sit right. Henry was a 2-year-old auditor, and that night he'd been out with friends. First at a barbecue, then a night. After partying, one friend said Henry wanted to be stopped at a gas station instead of heading home, which was already a bit odd. And now, let us move on to our subscriber pick of the day. Back in 2014, a guy named Kenny Veach dropped a strange comment on a YouTube video. He talked about finding a cave shaped like a perfect M near Nellis Air Force Base. He said the closer he got, the more his body started to vibrate.
And something about that cave just spooked me. Out of all the caves I've ever gone in, this one just made my body vibrate. The closer I got to it, the crazier my body felt, and I was like, all right, I'm not gonna go in there right now.
Which freaked him out enough to leave. People online got super curious and pushed him to go back and record it. Kenny went again, but weirdly, he couldn't find the cave that second time. Still, he gave it one more try after people kept asking. But after that last trip, he never came back. His phone was later found near a mine shaft, but the cave still missing. And so is Kenny.